Hi there. Thank you so much for listening to Grounded in Maine today. My name is Amy Fagan. Today I have a friend of mine. Her name is Crystal McLain of Crystal McLain Creative and the Creative Self-Care Podcast. Crystal, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm such a fan.
Oh, I'm a fan of you. Thank you so much for having me.
And we were just having a little session beforehand. She was she was helping me in the self-care department because don't we all need it? So what I love about Crystal's podcast is one, it's short and I can do it whenever and like I don't have to like stop it and then go back. Like I can get it all out and not lose my groove and my where I'm at. But Crystal is you are so good at like you can like channel where people are, whether you know them or not. Like you, I mean, because we're all the same, right?
We
We're
are.
we're pretty much all the same. We're all like doing too much and trying too hard and not taking breaks, like you were just telling me. Um, and so what you're saying is so relevant and so easy to understand. And so you guys, this is on the personal sustainability part. This is not like, she does all kinds of awesome things. This is just like the one that I relate to her most on because she is Crystal is such a source of support for me since we've met. We were just talking about that. I have no idea when it was. Sometime between 2020 and 2022.
Time is irrelevant.
But so thank you so much for being that for me, and thank you so much for being here to talk to us because I think that, especially in the world today, things are a
Cuckoo
little
bananas.
local cuckoo bananas, yes. And some of us might feel like we are falling, and I think we all need more of you and people that are doing things like you.
Aw, thanks. Yeah. Well, we're this I, I don't have any words because I feel like it's all the
You
same.
already
Like we're
used
all
them up.
I alrety used them up in the last hour just catching up. That's
We,
good.
we
No.
just talked for an hour. We were catching up because we haven't talked in like a year.
I
But
know.
it's
And that
always
was
like many, many memes every single day, back and forth.
yes, my love language is memes on Instagram. But yeah, no, like I feel like we're why I'm able to relate with so many people, like you said, is because we are all the same. Like we all have a nervous system which is operating our meat suits and meat machines, however, body. Some of you might know it as the human body. But we all have a nervous system that is operating our entire human experience. And that is, taking in information and processing our emotions and paying your bills and managing your other humans in your life and feeding yourself and cleaning your house and grocery shopping and going to work and all of the things, right? Like when you start adding up all of the things, you're like, oh, God damn, I do a lot in a day, right? And so I'm just another human living their human experience with a nervous system that has limited resources, just like everybody else. And so that's why I am able, I think, to relate to others because, the difference between me and a lot of other people is, I've learned to pay attention to it and understand how it works and learn what we really need to take care of ourselves instead of just, you know, the false idea of the gua sha facial roller and the new jiggly board vibration thing. I don't know what that's all about, but it looks
Right.
kind of fun.
And just to add too, so you're also a massage therapist and an
Oh
herbalist-ish,
yeah. Well, eh,
not
I've
herbalist.
dabbled. I've dabbled in the past, with mostly like essential oils and things like that. But I'd much rather just buy something from somebody, buy my tincture instead of like figuring out what I need to do
That's
in the herbalism world. Because a human has only so many. hours and time and energy in a day. So, but yeah, I am a trauma informed massage therapist, and yeah,
You know
a
the body.
wellness. I know the body. Yeah, like I've done a lot of research on how stress and trauma affect how our brains work and the effects of that on our bodies. And it's no joke. It's no joke. Stress is a crazy thing, and I think a lot of us just try to ignore it and plow through it and not, because we live in busy culture and we live in this idea where self-worth is equated if I can be more and do more, and if I can do all of it better every day, and that's it's a lot of pressure.
That is a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And so you were a massage therapist before you were a podcaster, but
Hmm.
so did the podcast come because you were talking to people as you were doing massage, or how did that end up coming about? Because I think that um I would think that they would sort of go together.
They they absolutely do. I'm going to pause for just a second. This is where you hit pause and you're recording, and I'm going into another room because Dave's in here and moving about, and I get easily distracted because I am a goldfish. So let me come over here, and this will be much better. There we go. Um, yeah, so I've been doing massage therapy for about 15 years now, and that ended up being a really pivotal moment in my life because I was not taking care of myself at all, mentally, emotionally, physically.
Hmm.
I got into the massage gig because I thought it would pay well and I could create my own schedule and I could work from home. And so I did it because I thought it would be a good gig. But then when I learned about the body and stress and tension and injury and trauma and all of that, I started putting some pieces together, right? And it inspired me to take better care of myself. And it kind of turned into my life's work, taking care of this body and this brain that I get one shot at having for
Right.
the rest of my life.
Mhm.
And so that was really inspiring. And the more I learned, the more motivated I was to take care of myself. And then the more I took care of myself, the better I felt. And like everything around me got better. And I thought, God damn, I need to share this with people. Like people need to know this because I'd start having conversations with friends or clients about, because I deep dive into the nervous system, and learn as much as I can. And so when I start explaining on a very fundamental mechanical level, like our biology and how it works, how our
Mhm.
nervous system works, people are like, oh, oh, you start taking things less personally. Like, why can't I focus? Oh, well, have you considered this X, Y, and Z? And people, no, I've never ever tried that.
Mhm.
People just try to force themselves to focus more, or they try to uh, force themselves to lose weight, or they force themselves to sleep, or they force themselves to do all of these things. And it's like, yeah, stop forcing. Like, we actually need to be doing less. We actually need to be like listening to less and taking in less stimulation and just find some ease and softness and grace in our lives so we can reset our nervous system so it can function properly and regulate the body because that's its job. And so that's why I got into the podcast. That's a really long answer to how I got into the podcast.
I mean, that's
But
that's what I was looking for, though. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. And I mean, I was sort of thinking that, in talking to your massage clients, that maybe that would cue you to be like, oh, they really need more than just massage. And also the fact that you have this extensive knowledge of the body, that you have a better understanding of how, the emotions and stuff like that, how everything sort of connects. But, I didn't know that part really. I mean, I'm like, she does massage and she does this amazing podcast and she's all about, you know, creative self-care, which is so, so cool. But it's so, everything is connected, it seems like. And it's so important to have that understanding. And so I'm so glad that some people have that understanding because I do not. I am the go-getter and on purpose, apparently.
Yeah. And I mean, that's all admirable, right? Like, that's another thing that I want to make sure that people know is like you, Amy, I know you're a go-getter. Like, and I know that you like to have a lot of projects and I know all of those things, right?
No.
But also
How are you
there's an
sleeping?
there's how you sleeping? How you how is that sustainable for you, right? Like your podcast is about sustainability. And, if you're going all the time, eventually you're going to wear your battery out, you know?
Yeah.
And, we
Right.
were, and not just you, but me and everybody. Like I've, another reason why I'm here is because I've burnt myself out several times
Right.
and it's turned into physical illness or injury. Like it's legit. So, like, that's another thing I want to talk about to people is, there's no shame. Like, if you find yourself doing too much or you're overwhelmed or you're burnt out and you're not taking the time, then you're going to beat yourself up because you're not taking the time and I should have known. But, like, that's exactly the kind of thing that we need to address. It's that emotional part too. Like, that's how we make this sustainable is, you know, practicing creative self-care,
Ooh.
caring for ourselves. I don't care. Care comes with compassion, you know.
Ooh.
Care comes with gentleness. Care comes with ease, right? Care doesn't come from force.
Oh
Force
my
myself
God.
to do self-care. Like that's
Right. Well,
yeah.
yeah. And so before we started recording, you guys, so we were just catching up because, like I said, we haven't talked in like a year. But we were talking about how I'm sleeping now more than I have in 35 years. However, I have to like block myself out between 1:30 and 3 on the weekend so I don't end up, closing my eyes during a podcast interview. Um, and so she was guiding me on that. And it was so it sounds very relatable to and I know people that sleep really well, but I think that we're all probably a little bit tired.
Yeah. Especially nowadays, with I mean, there's a lot of I think we can expect a lot of changes in the coming days. And I feel like people don't do well with change. And we live in bodies that are always aging. And with that process comes change. And yeah, we're just very resistant towards change. We want things to be the same because it's familiar and the brain likes familiar because it feels safe.
Hmm.
Even if it's a shitty thing, that we're familiar with, it still wants to grasp onto it because it knows how to deal with it. Um, and so, but yeah, it's just there's life right now. There's just so many things vying for our attention between smartphones and
Mhm.
games and TV and whatever the list goes on. Um, but yeah, like we just to get back to the rest thing, we need to find ways that bring rest and peace into our lives so that we can make our regular, very busy, very demanding lives more sustainable. So we can make the aging process more sustainable. So we can get through the coming changes in life more sustainable and approachable and easier. The only way that we're going to make any of this sustainable and doable is if we get real about how much we can actually do in a day because we have limited resources, we have limited time, we have limited energy. I don't know if I can say this on your podcast, but we have limited fucks we can give.
Good.
Like we have to start setting some boundaries for ourselves and figuring out where we can slow down and tune in to our bodies and our emotions and our habits and all of those things and figure out how to be creative with our choices so they support us so we can get through this thing called life.
Hmm.
Cue the Prince song.
Right. Um,
Sorry.
and then, so can you, it's all brilliant, obviously, but why bring creativity into it?
Well, creativity, I feel like needs a little bit of an explanation here because a lot of times when I say, "Oh, I teach creative self-care," or I talk about creative self-care, a lot of people think that I'm doing like arts and crafts, and that's cool and absolutely can be a part of somebody's wellness program,
Mhm.
and part of a meditation, part of a mindfulness process. Um, but for me, being creative with your self-care means your leading your life with curiosity. You're looking into the things that make you feel healthy and empowered and fulfilled with curiosity and critical thinking and creative problem solving. And that, right, you're looking beyond what you've been told you should be doing by marketing and media and perhaps your familial systems and your friends and society, right? There's all of these ideas of what I should be doing to be healthy or what I should be doing to feel happy or I should be doing to make myself feel strong and empowered and have a fulfilling life. Like it's not about having a new car. It's not about being thinner. It's not about so much that we see out there in the world. And so that's why we need to be, but we end up believing it because, our families are very convincing and media is very convincing.
Mhm.
But what do you really need? And that's why we need to be creative. We have to find a new way towards our wellness and be willing to experiment and try different things.
Right. Because what
So
we usually
that's
think of when you hear the word self-care is like meditation, yoga, massage, stuff like that, which
diet and
they're
exercise,
all, yeah, they're all great things. They don't all, they're not all, what's the word?
one
Um,
size fits all.
yes. Yes. Or, we can't always afford, like I could probably use 8 massages in a week, but I can't afford to do that. And I also don't have that time. But
Right.
um,
And so
you
if I was, say, I was coaching you and you were saying, gosh, I could really benefit from a massage, but I can't afford that, then we'd have a conversation about, well, what is it about the massage that you're looking for? Like, what is it about the massage that you believe is going to make you feel better? Right. Because that's the goal. We just want to feel better. And that's going to look different for everybody. And so I don't know what your answers would be. Do you want to answer? Do we
um,
want to turn this into like a little mini
little mini
mentoring
session.
session?
I was talking to a friend here who has been through a lot also, and I was just saying I actually don't enjoy massage.
Mhm.
And so it came out that it was like a trauma response or something that like the I don't know, I don't understand it. Like when she explained it, I was like, "Ooh, that sounds right." But just the fact that being touched and poked and stuff does not always feel good to me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like it's supposed to be really good for relaxing and really good for your muscles and stuff.
Right. Well, here that is like the perfect example, like why we have to be creative. Like, yeah, massage is going to work for somebody. I love it. Right. And I have trauma around touch, and it took me a long time. Like, I'm a massage therapist, but it took me a while to feel comfortable being touched. You're in a very vulnerable position, right? You're naked with usually a stranger touching you. Like, they've got the power. you're nothing but vulnerable, right?
Right.
And so like, yeah, of course that's going to feel awkward and scary and not enjoyable for a lot of people. Um, but for somebody else, it's going to feel great, you know? And so, but so what is it about a massage that somebody, why they might want to go, you know? For me, it's about now, it is about receiving safe touch, you know, and um, reminding my brain that this is possible because that wasn't always the case. Touch
Right.
wasn't a safe thing for me.
Hmm.
And so that's very soothing for my nervous system, but it took some work to get there, right? Um, but some people want it because it's relaxing. It relaxes their muscles. It moves lymph. It's good for circulation. It's, you know, there's all of these other benefits from receiving massage.
Hmm.
And so you can get those in other ways. So that's why you could be creative about it. Like,
Right.
okay, well, maybe that jiggly board that's being advertised right now is good for you because I guess maybe it's supposed to be good for lymphatic. I don't know, but there's gentle self lymphatic movement you can do. There's stretching. There's all kinds of
Or
things we
like
could do.
massaging your own feet or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, I think that the creative part is it took a little bit for me to understand, but I mean, now that I listen to your podcast, I like it makes more sense. Like it's just everything is not one size fits all, and it's more like you're saying, the curiosity of like what actually feels good and what feels like, what do I feel like I need in this moment?
Right. And, you know, there are some things that we all definitely need, right? Like we all need to stay hydrated. You know, that's non-negotiable. There are some people that don't need any hydration. Everybody needs to be hydrated on some level, but you can be creative about how you do that. You know, if you eat lots of fresh produce and drink lots of tea and eat a lot of soup, guess what? You're getting hydrated. And
Mhm.
so it's kind of fun. It almost becomes a game, right? When you're like, what do I need? I can't get it in this way. How else can I get it? It becomes like a little game that you play with yourself. And the more we do that, the more we strengthen our brains to become better problem solvers. And then when the brain becomes strong in that way, it's like everything else around it gets easier. And I think that's one of the things that I found to be the most empowering things about practicing creative self-care is that it just made me creative in other areas of my life. Like I just feel like my brain is more prepared to make
Mm.
decisions that need real critical thinking, right? And I think generally speaking, we need more of that, right? We just accept so much in our lives. And I
Yeah.
think it's really a good practice to get into the habit of stepping back and say, okay, well, yeah, this is one way. How else could I do this? How else could I do this so it's more sustainable for me? How else could I do this so it's more enjoyable for me?
Mhm.
How else could I do this so I'm getting more bang for my buck? Right. So I'm not wasting my time and having to do three things instead of just one thing at a time, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah, totally. Uh, I think I I really like that. And I mean, I love everything that you do, but just like I like there's so much thought in it and it's really you based, which is, I mean, obviously we're carrying it's self-care is
Yeah.
what works for the self. Um, and I think that's really beautiful. I really do. I mean, I think that there's value to all the traditional self-care ideas for sure. But like, like we were just talking about with massage for me, I can't get there. But there are always other things. And I love that I remember last year, I think it was last year, you did like this series of like every system in the body. And you did like an episode or two on every system in the body so that we have better understanding because we're not massage therapists, we're not doctors, not all of us anyway. And but so then and then understanding our insides to be able to just, have a better understanding and know how they work and what, excuse me, might be helpful, so that we have a better understanding of it. That's all I'm gonna say.
Uh, yeah, absolutely. No, and I'm glad you brought that up because that's one of the things that I like to dive into, right? There's the whole self-awareness and like, what do I want? What do I really want? What do I really need? And all of that sort of thing. But also, along with self-awareness is body literacy and knowing how your meat machine works, right? Because so many people don't. They just complain about it all the time. And so when you're empowered with the basic information of how your systems work and how they work together and signs and symptoms of when they need a little extra care,
Right.
whew, and then like what they need, because so much of it is so basic,
Right.
right? A lot of what we need is simple. And yeah, like the more you know, I often say, the more you know about something, the better able you are at taking care of it.
Sure.
So why not get to know who we are and what we are? Who am I as a person? It's like those old Sears commercials, the softer side of Sears. You've got like the lawnmowers and the mechanic stuff, and then you've got lingerie. So you've got like the nuts and bolts of the body and biologically, chemically, and electrically how it works and functions. But then you've got that fluffier side of the ego and, your desires and your values and ethics and the things that make you you. Those two things have to connect. And that's another reason why we have to be creative,
Mm.
right?
Yeah, for
So
sure.
you can connect those two things and give yourself what you really want, what you really need in a way that you really want.
Mm.
Because a lot of times we're not going to do the things that we really need because we're resistant towards them because they're not fun or enjoyable or they're foreign. How can we make it more desirable? How can we make it more fun? How can I make this so it fits into my life and my personality?
Right.
Creativity is everywhere.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, while you were talking about that, I mean, back to the massage thing, like I worked I had a position, with a company that it gave everyone a free massage every month. And I was like, clearly I need a massage. And so I would go and I was like, I just don't feel any better.
Yeah.
And also like we would get like free yoga and I would go to yoga class and I would cry and I would go away feeling so awful. Like everyone was staring at me and I wasn't doing it right. And I'm never going to get it because I'm so conscious of what am I doing? And so it was just like, it was eye-opening for me. Like, this is supposed to be good for me. Why am I coming away feeling bad? And so that was like, that was a really big moment for me, like realizing that. And then I met you and I was like, oh, I get that. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Like sometimes we just don't like the thing that we're doing just because it doesn't jive with us. Or sometimes we go into something because we've got this pre-scripted narrative of what it's supposed to be or how it's supposed to affect me or how I should be doing it, right? And then comes the judgment, of the experience or of the self during
Yeah.
this activity. And so, yeah, if we can learn about the chatter be aware of the chatter in our heads of like, oh, you're gonna suck at this, or oh, this isn't feeling good, or oh, this, that's not how I'm supposed to be doing it. Like, right. And now you're doing the thing poorly simply because you're thinking about it poorly. And when the fact is that you're not doing it poorly, you're just doing it at the level that you know how to do it or the level of experience that you have with that thing,
Right.
right? It doesn't mean there's no judgment. Like there's no good or bad. It's just like this is your entry level, right?
Right.
That's funny when you talked about we had different experiences, and I don't know why you cried after your first yoga. experience, but I also cried after my first yoga experience. And I tried yoga for the first time way back before I was open minded. I was very judgmental, very critical. I grew up in a fishing family. Like, there's not a lot of higher education in my family. We are blue collar. Sarcasm was my first language. Like, brutal, brutal upbringing. Um, and so yoga was something that those spirit ninnies did, like the woo folk, and that's fucking bullshit. And there's like, whatever. I'm not going to go and get bendy in front of a bunch of strangers and and chant it out and breathe heavy. Nah, that's weird. But but I decided to do it anyway. Um, and I did it, and we did all of the things. Like at the very end, we're sitting all cross-legged with one hand on our chest and the other hand on our belly. We're taking deep breaths, and as we're exhaling, we're together. And I shit you not, I started crying. I just was crying. Now, backstory: I'm fat. I have asthma. Was not very coordinated. I didn't have a good sense of balance. So
Same.
I didn't have the Lululemon gear. Like, I didn't,
Right.
I just like went in with, like, I don't know, regular dingy leggings and a t-shirt, and did my fat girl yoga the best that I could. And I sweat my ass off, and it was so hard, and my body was shaky, and it was so challenging. And I got tippy, and I almost fell over, and the instructor came over and corrected my body a lot, which meant she had to touch my body a lot, and like all of the things that would challenge my comfort level.
Mhm.
And I stuck it out, and I did it. And at the end, it was this sense of peace and accomplishment. I'm like, I just did a hard thing, and nobody made fun of me. Like, nobody said, "Oh my God, what are you doing here wearing that? Oh my God, you sucked at that." Like, nobody did that.
Mhm.
Those were all of my preconceived thoughts of judgment
Mhm.
based on bullshit that I've observed elsewhere, and not based in any real truth or reality. And it was this permission at the end. I was crying because it just felt like you can do anything, and you have permission to do whatever you want, and you can do hard things, and you don't have to do them well. And it was just proof that the world didn't end, you know? And I think we all need little gentle reminders that, I think that's cool that you're curious about that thing. I think it's cool that you want that for yourself. Let's
Right.
explore it. Like, how can we tap into that so it feels a little safer? How can we tap into that so, it's a little more accessible for you? And let's just see what happens. If it's awful, you never have to do it again, ever. But let's just see what happens. And I want to be that proverbial hand that people can hold while they try new ways of caring for themselves, or try new ways of, you know, seeing themselves and accepting themselves
Mm.
and challenging themselves in ways that are not so threatening. Low risk challenges, you know.
Sure. Wow.
Anyway,
That's
I can
really,
really ramble. So thank you for being patient with me.
I love it. I love it. I mean, it's just there, it's just more sort of backstory as to why you are as awesome as you are. Like there's just so much to it. And we don't start as a professional. We start as a beginner. And you've had a lot of experience in trying new things. And I think it's great to have someone to encourage you to do stuff like that because like you were saying, society and media and stuff is going to say, you need to do this. This is self-care. This is what you need. And it's not always, it might not be that for everyone. And so to have someone to say, maybe slow down or, all the things that you say, just like, is what about that is hard? Like maybe if you did it this way or if you tried or just, slow down and think about what actually you're needing.
Yeah.
That's important. So, very cool. I love that. And so, you guys, if you listen to Creative Self-Care podcast with Crystal, you will get, it's usually like 10 minutes-ish at a
Yeah. I
time.
mean, I think the longest that I usually run is around a half an hour at max. I
Yeah.
try to,
But it's
but
something
yeah,
that is accessible, it's easy, and you learn something about yourself every time, which is so cool. And it's just necessary. I feel like it's really necessary. And I'm so glad that we met and that we, because we met in a business class.
that's
Um,
right. Yeah.
and it was I feel like I tend to do that. Like I'll go to a business class and I get so much more than business out of these classes because my brain doesn't take on business. I'm just not meant for that. But there are always people that I connect with. And so, Crystal and I connected and I'm still connected with a few of the people, but I don't send memes and reels to everyone. But
Well,
so
you send such good memes and reels. I
oh my
appreciate
gosh,
them.
we're so good at that. And so I and I think that, that's also sort of a form of self-care, even though we probably need less of the social media, but it's also fun to have those laughs or like super beautiful things and things that make you go, "Oh my gosh, that's so sweet and that's the cutest thing I've ever seen." Just to like I think one of the things that you had said was like disrupting the hard days and stuff like that. And or just moments just to say, and you've seen I don't know if everyone's seen it, but I guess it's a meme that says, the when you send memes to friends, it's not necessarily a lot of the time it's just saying I'm thinking of you and you're my favorite and
Yeah, yeah.
not that this would make you smile and stuff like that. And so it's self-care also just to send something to somebody that lets them know that you're thinking of them or that makes them think of you or something like that. Like there's just something about social media for me just makes me feel really connected to people, even though we don't
Well,
talk once a year.
yeah. Yeah. And I feel like that's, you know, with anything, we can harness the good parts, like sugar isn't bad, but sugar becomes bad if that's all we eat. Social media isn't bad. It it's bad when we use it to be a troll or that's all we're doing. We're like ignoring other parts of our lives and our needs because of social media. Like I love social media. It's the modern day handwritten letter. It's the modern day cup of coffee. Like we're so spread out globally and we're so busy. And that's part of our self-care that we need. We need mental, emotional, physical, you know,
Right.
all these different types of self-care, and social self-care is one of them. And it's nice to have somebody say, I'm thinking of you
Right.
through a cute goat meme or chicken meme or it's
Right.
lovely. So I appreciate you taking the time to and thinking of me and sending those. It makes me feel special. I'm like, ooh, what's Amy got today?
What's she sending me today? I mean, I just think about sometimes when, 25, 30 years ago or whatever, I know the young people aren't going to get this, but like when we had to wait for letters to come in the mail and, if the
Or even
further
a
apart you
phone
are,
call. Do you remember the landline party lines? Like
I don't
waiting for
remember
the,
that.
oh my God, we had a party line. So I had a phone number that we shared back when I was a youth and we had things called telephones. Yeah, we shared a phone number with other people. So you'd pick up the phone to make a call, and somebody not in your family, not in your house, is using the line. So you'd have to wait until they got off the line to make a phone call, right? And now it's crazy, that we can be instantly connected.
Right. Right. And so you would have to send a letter or make a phone call or something. And, you had to wait to be able to share with somebody that you were thinking of them. And this is such a, it's an instant thing, which is, it's good and bad, but I think it's mostly good that if you're thinking of someone to be able to send something instantly and just let them see that you were thinking of them and not like 2 weeks later. I was thinking about you 2 weeks ago. I was thinking about you 2 weeks ago, Crystal. I'm telling you right now, because you'll get that 2 weeks later. Um,
Well, thank you. And I will give you my gratitude in 2 more weeks.
but anyway, this is so, so fun. I love having like close friends on so that it's very, very comfortable. But Crystal, when I say the word sustainability to you, what does that mean?
It means being able to do it for the long haul. That's what that means to me. It means finding ways that whatever it is that you have to do for the end until the end of your days, which is living hopefully, healthfully,
Mm.
empowered, and fulfilled, how how can you do that for the rest of your life?
Right.
And spoiler alert, it's not by staying the same. It's not by doing exactly what you've always done. It's about getting curious and exploring new alternatives and trying something different.
Mm. It's
And
not always being busy all the time and doing all the things.
no, no, I don't think so. I think it's actually just the opposite. I think it's about, um, you know, the just real quick, here's a quick little lesson for you. If your brain is always busy, if your body is always busy, that means it's always having to process and take in information. And when that happens consistently, day in and day out, um, it overwhelms the brain, and we go into overwhelm or burnout. Some people might experience anxiety, some people might experience just disassociation and stuff like that. And what happens is then we start functioning from um, more of an emotional place of our brain called the amygdala instead of the critically thinking, rational, good decision making part of our brain, which is the prefrontal cortex. Um, and, that it's harder to make good decisions and do things well if you're always busy. So if you want to be productive and you want to make good quality work because that's who you are,
Mhm.
you especially then have to rest more because you're going to make your brain function better if you do. So for all of you overachievers and people pleasers and busy people out there, I am pointing at the screen right now, and Amy just pointed at me back. Yeah, if that's who you are and that's who you believe yourself to be and that's who you want to be, I applaud that. There's nothing wrong with that. But you especially need to take breaks and give your brain time and space to process so it can do the good work that you want it to.
Yeah. Can you tell your thing about the phone again? The charging.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
On that note.
So yeah, so I just people love analogies because it makes sense. We all have these smartphones, right? And we have system updates, right? I think we all know what we're talking about when we have to do a systems update for our phone or our laptop, right? And so, in order to do that systems update, your battery has to have at least 50% of its power, or it can't perform the systems update. When we are going and going and going and going, we're draining our batteries. And so when we go to sleep at night, which is kind of like our systems update, that's when the body does a lot of its detoxing. That's when tissues repair themselves. That's when the brain sorts out the bullshit from the good things that it needs to remember. That's when your body does like a shutdown systems update, but it can't do it unless you have 50% of your battery power, just like your phone. That means we have to take breaks throughout our daily lives so we can recharge, so we can sleep better, so we can do our systems update. And sometimes, it's rest isn't necessarily always taking a nap or watching a movie, right? Sometimes it's having a nice chat with a friend, like we did earlier.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's, you know, eating a meal quietly. Sometimes it's going for a peaceful walk. But a lot of time, how you can tell it's rest is if it feels good to your nervous system or if it makes your soul gremlin smile, right? We've all got this little soul gremlin inside of us that just wants to feel happy and inspired and loved and cared for. So if it makes you feel fuzzy and good, you're doing rest right. And we need that in order to do our systems update.
Yeah. You say it but so much better than I could. So,
It's because I practiced saying it in a podcast 1,000 times.
awesome. Well, and it works because
Yay.
that hits me. That hits me. So how can people find 𝗙ście McLain
They
to
can go to 𝗙𝗶𝗹𝗻𝗃creative.com. Is like that's where everything is. If you want to find links to all of the things that I do, that's kind of the mecca. Otherwise, you can find me on Instagram, Krystal McLain Creative. Sometimes I'm on TikTok, sometimes I'm on Facebook, but mostly I'm on Instagram. But honestly, if you want to get the blog and the podcast and now a vlog, like I'm recording myself like visually, um, yeah, you can find all of that just at crystalmcleancreative.com. And yeah, I do mentoring, I teach workshops. That's a really exciting thing I've been doing lately is leading workshops. So far, it has been with um, sexual abuse agencies. Um, and I'm doing one in March for a domestic abuse clinic. um, so, if your organization has a high stress job and your employees need stress management, maybe check out the podcast and see if something feels relatable for your folks so they can find a little peace in their lives so they can continue to do their good work. Anyway, that was a little promo. Sorry about that.
I love it. I think it's spot on. I think that's so helpful. And I'm so glad that you're doing that. Man, that's so good.
Share the love. Like, I don't want to gatekeep any of this. I don't want to like hoard all of this information for myself. Like, that just feels greedy. The more we all understand ourselves, the better we're going to be able to understand each other and the more peaceful and
Following.
productive life we're all going to create together,
Yeah.
right? There's no I in team.
Ooh,
Sorry.
team.
That wasn't even like
I love thinking
relevant to
of
what I
us.
was saying.
I love thinking of us as a team.
We are a team, man. We are a team.
Yeah,
Like, we didn't get here all by ourselves.
yeah,
It
for
takes a
sure.
village.
Yeah. All right. 𝗙ście McLain, thank you so much for all you're doing in the world and for hanging out with me and sharing it with my people.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thanks for the visit beforehand. That was awesome.